Hello and welcome back. This is Jennifer McGuire and I hope you're having a great day. Today I am sharing a technique that I call Spotlight Stamp Layering. It's just another way to get more out of your stamp layering stamp sets. I have several examples for you. I did these roses here. This rose is just gorgeous. And then I have a bonus poinsettia card I'll do at the end of the video. Today's video is also part of an Altenew Crafty Friends blog hop. Altenew is one of my favorite companies, so I'm honored to be a part of this, and I thought I would talk a little bit about my friend May Park. She happens to work for Altenew, but she is definitely also one of my favorite card makers out there. I have recommended following her before, so if you haven't done so already, please check out her YouTube channel and blog, which I will link to below. May's cards always make me smile, just like she does. She's got a giant heart and a wonderful spirit. Now, her cards are always beautiful and often are one layer, but she adds so much to these one layer cards. One of the things she does is she can fill a background with beautiful stamped images and then adds tiny little dots so that it's like she's created this beautiful pattern paper all her own. So I thought I would do my own spin on that today using stamp layering. And May, thank you for letting me use your work as inspiration. I'm a big fan of yours and I adore you. Okay, so let's get started with these cards here. I really wanted to use the Altenew Build a Flower Rose set. Now, Altenew does these Build a Flower sets where you have a large stamp set and the coordinating dies that come together. Now, this rose set is amazing. Now, I have many stamp layering sets that I like and I've used before, but this one has more detail than any I've ever seen. Also, I found that it's very simple to layer. I'm also building my own sentiment using a small sentiment from the Altenew Sketchy Floral stamp set and a script hello from the Altenew Amazing You stamp set. I like to combine my stamp sets together to create new sentiments. Okay, so I'm going to start by creating a mask for my large rose. So I'm taking the base image and I'm stamping it onto some full sticky Post-it notes. These are great for masks. I actually have 4 Post-it notes here together and I'm cutting them all out at the same time. This way I have 4 masks. Since I'm mass producing these cards, I'm going to do a lot of stamping and I don't want the ink to soak through the mask if I use it too much. I'm using my MISTI here and I've put in a note card. And I'm kind of positioning out where I want my main spotlight flower and my sentiment. I'm going to take a picture of that so I can remember. I'm going to start by stamping that spotlight flower, that one that's nice and bold there on the right. Now this I'm going to do in multiple colors because I wanted to make several cards at once. Now I like to start with the biggest, most solid image first, the bottom layer, and stamp that in the lightest color. I'm using Altenew inks today, and I will list in my YouTube description below and over on my blog the color combinations that I used for the 5 cards that I made. I like Altenew inks for many reasons, but one in particular is that they clean off stamps pretty nicely, so you can move between color combinations without any problem. So here I'm stamping this base flower in the lightest color for all my combinations. Now, when you're doing the spotlight stamping technique where you have one image that is in focus, it's best to start with that first and work around it. So now I have my mask and I'm going to position it over the flower and do the base layer of my leaf. I just decided to do the masking next. In case I messed anything up, I wouldn't mess up all the layers of a rose, just the one layer. Now, if you were only making one card, you could definitely do this with an acrylic block, but since I'm making several cards, I decided to use my MISTI stamping tool, and it saves me quite a bit of time. So I'm going to go ahead and mask off each rose and stamp the leaf on each of them. So now I'm going to do the second layer of my rose. So this layering rose set actually has 5 or 6 layers to the rose. I'm only going to use 4 today, but you could definitely add the other layers if you wanted to. This one's easy to line up because you can use the edge of the stamp to help line up, and also some little areas in the center that line up nicely too. So I'm using the second darkest color, so this is just a little bit darker than the first, to stamp this layer. So I did the second layer on each of my cards. Now I want to start filling up the background with some more softer looking roses. So I put my sentiments in there just so I have enough room saved for those sentiments. Now I'm going to take the sentiments out now that I have that rose placed. And this rose I'm going to stamp repeatedly in the background. This is that second layer, but I'm stamping it with the lightest color. I want to use the lightest color because I don't want it to be too distracting from the main rose. But I'm using the second layer because it's more obvious that it's a rose shape, if that makes sense. So I did that on each of the cards, the first rose in the background. And now I'm going to use the first layer of the leaf and stamp that over the rose also. So again, I'm using my masking, so I have a nice, clear, clean looking card. But this time, I don't want to start with the lightest green color because it's too dark, actually, for this background. I want it to be even softer. So what I'm going to do is ink up the leaf with that same green ink, stamp it off onto scrap paper, and then stamp it onto my card. And I'm going to do that twice, and that gives me a really light green that goes nicely with that light pink ink that I've used for the flower. If you have a lighter green ink, you could definitely use that, but I wanted to show you how you can make more out of the inks you have by creating a lighter color using second generation stamping. That's where you stamp the ink off first and then stamp onto your project. So basically I'm covering the background with one layer from the layered rose image, which will save me quite a bit of time and make it more subtle. This was inspired by a card that I saw my friend Kathy Rakusin do. She's over at the Daily Marker, and I will link to her too. Be sure to check out her work also. Okay, now for the teal colored flower and the blue colored flower, the inks I used were more bold, so I decided not to do second generation stamping for the leaves and instead just go for the first generation. So I repeated in the background, stamping that layer of rose with the softest color ink and the green leaves. And now I'm going and working down onto the bottom. So you can see the top of my card, which happens to be upside down right now, is filled as much as I could. I put the images as close together as possible to fill up the background. It's almost like you're making your own pattern paper. I was sure to leave an area for my sentiment. So now I'm going back to that main spotlight image. It's time to finish that off with the additional layers of the rose. So this is the third rose layer, and I'm using my third darkest color. So we used the lightest, the medium, now we're onto dark ink, and the final layer, which will be in a few moments, will be the very dark ink. So here I am stamping that layer on each of the roses, and you can see it's starting to form and be absolutely gorgeous. So we've done the 3 layers. Let's go to the 4th. And I'm going to use my darkest ink for this one. So this you can see just easily lines up with the pattern in the rose already. And you'll see that this doesn't just layer on top of the colors before, but it also fills in other areas. So you're actually ending up with lots of different colors in this rose because in some areas the inks overlap, in some they don't. So you get a beautiful array of color. So now it's on to the last 2 layering images for the rose. I skipped the last one. You could definitely add it if you want to, but I didn't have any darker colors. So what I'm doing is taking that same dark ink that I used for the last layer, but I'm going to double stamp this. That gives me a darker look. So here I am inking it once and stamping it, and then inking it again and stamping it. That's a great way to get additional colors. Just double stamp things. So now it's time to build up the leaf also. Now be very careful. When you're using a mask made of paper, many times it'll start to soak up the ink and it might actually bleed through the mask. So that's why I switch to a clean mask every once in a while, because I don't want green ink seeping in onto my colorful flower. Now I oftentimes hear people say they struggle with stamp layering sets, that they don't get it perfectly lined up. If you look at my cards at the end of this video, they aren't perfectly lined up. But I promise you, if you keep stamping all the layers, it will always end up looking nice. Sometimes if you stop after just a couple layers and you're disappointed in how it looks, you give up. But if you stick with it, usually once you add all the layers, you'll be happy with the results. So I encourage you to stick with it. I also encourage asking for Christmas from Santa, a stamp positioner, because it really is helpful in making lots of cards at once and also making less errors. So I'm just going to continue on. I'm just doing all the additional layers of my green leaves. And I'm using a mask every time. Here I'm getting lazy and just using the mask kind of from the other side just to protect enough of my flower to continue stamping these leaves. And these leaves, I used my favorite combination of green inks from Altenew, the Parrot Bamboo Olive and Moss Inks. That's my favorite green combination for leaves. Okay, so now we have our spotlight flower completely done. Look how gorgeous that rose is in all the different colors. And then the background is just filled with some soft layers from the flower. Now it's time to add our sentiment. I've saved a little spot for it. This is a great sentiment that I built here because it can be used for a variety of occasions. So it says, hello, love and hugs. You could use that for sympathy, encouragement, anything you want. And I like to have a lot of these cards on hand because I will always have something ready to go. You could also leave this area unstamped, not have a sentiment there, and add whatever sentiment you need later on. So now I have a bunch of cards with lots of stamping that are all one layer. But I decided on a couple of them to pop up the flower, to stamp an additional flower and leaf cluster, and die cut them and glue them right in place on the card. I wanted to show you how fast this mass producing of stamp layering can be. Here I have a piece of white cardstock with a leaf in the corner, and I'm rotating it each time to stamp in a different corner. So I can easily make 4 leaf clusters very quickly using a stamping tool. I do the first layer, then I position the second layer and stamp that and continue. So I did a bunch of roses and a bunch of leaf clusters. And I'm going to save most of them for some cards I'm going to do later on. But a few of these I'm going to go ahead and die cut with the coordinating dies and add onto my cards just for a little pop to kind of add to that spotlight feeling of the main flower. And to be honest with you, the reason I did it on a couple of the flowers is I messed them up. I got an ink little splotch on one of them. And on another, I accidentally did the images in the wrong order with the wrong colors and I wasn't happy with it. So don't be afraid. If you mess something up, look for a way to cover it up, as I'm doing here. So I had some green ink on this blue flower, so I just decided to cover it up. Put some foam tape, and I'm just lining up my leaf, lining up the rose, and then we're good to go. And it looks like I intended to do that all along. So I ended up popping up the flower and leaves on my blue card and on my teal card. So now you could leave the cards as is at this point, but I decided to do a little dot technique in the background inspired by my friend May Park. So I took a marker that is closest in color to that lightest pink color that I stamped, and I'm filling in all the empty areas with different size dots. It's kind of hard to see in the video, but it really adds a lot and pulls it all together nicely. I can't wait to do that again in the future. So here are my 5 different cards. We have a pink, a light red, a peach, a teal, and a blue. That peach really has won my heart. I love that peach color combination. Again, I will link to all the colors of inks that I used in my description below. Keep in mind that Altenew inks are also available in ink cubes, and you can buy a set of cubes where there's the light, medium, dark, and extra dark of the same color, so that you can do stamp layering very easily. Now before we go, I wanted to show you an example using the Spotlight stamp layering technique with the Altenew Build-A-Flower Poinsettia stamp set. Now this one actually includes an outline image in addition to the layering images. So I thought I would use that outline image for the background. So I filled up the background with that outline image and a bunch of dots. Then I used the layering for the spotlight image, which I popped up. Now those leaves, I created that by stamping the flower with green inks, die cutting them and tucking them underneath the red flower. So you could try this with any of your stamp layering sets you may have. This is a great way to kind of create your own background and create a focal point for your main image. If you're interested in any of these products and the ink colors, I listed them in my YouTube description below, but go to my blog, I'll have more information there and lots of other inspiration. In the middle are a couple other videos that might be of interest to you. If you haven't done so, hit subscribe, and I hope that you'll return again for another video soon. Have a great week.